The air in the grand chamber, usually buzzing with the low murmur of translators and shifting papers, was dead silent. Every camera on the planet was locked onto the single dais, broadcasting the feed to every screen, every device, every public square. There were no cuts, no edits, no commercial breaks. This was the final broadcast. On the dais stood two figures. They appeared as young adults, a man and a woman, identical in their serene, ageless features. They were the twins. They had introduced themselves not with titles or nations, but with a simple, devastating fact. They represented all of life on Earth. More than that, they had created it all. The human experiment was their design. Now the experiment was over. Arrayed before them, seated in simple chairs like schoolchildren, were every world leader, every corporate magnate, every media baron, every general who had ever wielded true power. They were not bound by ropes, but by a force that made their own limbs feel like stone. Their faces were masks of terror, defiance, and utter confusion. The female twin spoke, her voice a melody that resonated in the bones of every listener. "We gave you a garden," she said, her eyes sweeping the row of powerful figures. "A complex, beautiful, self-sustaining system. We gave you curiosity, compassion, and the capacity for great love. We introduced variables: fear, greed, the illusion of separation." The male twin continued, his tone one of profound disappointment. "The hypothesis was whether consciousness could evolve to become stewards of its own cradle. The data is conclusive. You have failed the core parameters. You weaponized the fear. You institutionalized the greed. You turned the illusion of separation into borders, bombs, and billionaires while the garden burned and the weak suffered." One leader, his face flushed, tried to bluster. "You cannot judge us. We are humanity. We have achieved greatness." The female twin tilted her head. "You achieved extraction. You achieved accumulation. You confused dominance with greatness. You were given a symphony and heard only the drum of profit." She gestured, and above each seated figure a holographic tapestry unfurled. It was not just their public deeds, but their private intentions, their secret orders, the cascading consequences of their choices, the polluted rivers, the empty bellies, the wars sparked by lies, the generations burdened with debt and despair. It was their personal karma, made manifest for all to see. There were no pleas left. The evidence was absolute, intimate, and inarguable. "The experiment is concluded," the male twin announced. "The substrate will be cleared." He did not raise a hand. There was no flash of light. Instead, the seated figures simply unraveled. One by one, they dissolved not into nothingness, but into the very consequences they had set in motion. The arms dealer faded into the echo of a child's scream from a conflict zone. The oil tycoon dissipated into the heat of a raging wildfire. The propagandist melted into the static of 1,000 truths twisted into lies. They were eliminated into the karma of their actions, becoming part of the pain they had caused, to be felt and understood from the inside for an eternity. The chairs were empty. The twins stood silently for a long moment, the eyes of the world upon them. The female twin looked out, as if through the cameras, into the soul of every remaining person. "The garden remains, wounded but resilient. The experiment in its current form is scrapped. The data is archived." The male twin finished, his final words hanging in the silent air of a terrified planet. "We will now deliberate. Whether to sterilize the Petri dish and begin anew with a different formula, or to allow the remaining culture to continue, unsupervised, to find its own way in the ruins. Both outcomes are possible. The simulation is paused." And with that, the broadcast ended. Not to a black screen, but to a live, unchanging shot of the empty dais and the empty chairs. On Earth, the silence broke into chaos. But beneath the panic, a deeper, more profound question took root.